Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, PDAC 2019, day 4 here in Toronto, and with me now is Brent Cook from Exploration Insights, a real market professional, I would call it. So we want to talk about the market in general, and of course what was going on in the PDAC this year.
My focus is mostly exploration, early stage exploration, and it was actually pretty slow down there. There's not a lot of new things coming out, not a lot of excitement. Over the past, 6 to 8 months, we've seen a number of stocks, companies drill, individual holes, like 1 hole or 2 hole, and it ramps the stock up. Nobody does their due diligence. The next hole it crashes. So it tells me there's a market per se for discovery. But there's not a lot of new stuff going on, I'm afraid. I mean, people are working. There's good work going on, but there was no buzz down there, I guess is the bottom line. I don't know. Did you see much of a buzz?
Absolutely nothing. Yeah. No, definitely not. And also, I think it's really tough to see with exploration, honestly, because we have too less exploration, but I mean focused exploration. Yeah, it looks to me like a little bit here, a little bit there, but nothing like right on the spot.
The reality of exploration is, unless you're working in a brownfields district, something right close to a mine, what we need is grassroots exploration, which is going out into a new area with a new concept and developing that concept, testing and refining your theses, et cetera, et cetera. That takes time. The problem we've got is that companies can only raise enough, for the most part, most companies can only get enough money together for 1 field season. And so in that field season, they've got to produce results that are exceptional so they can raise money for the next one, which forces them to come into kind of known areas, old projects that have been drilled and drilled and drilled, and they know they can go in and they can get a hole and hopefully raise money. That doesn't really advance the exploration process. Exploration is a scientific endeavor, and it takes, it'll take 2, 3, 4, 5 years before a company does the work, kills enough projects until they finally come across something that works. So it's a long process with a short-term time frame for interest for the investors.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the metals you think exploration should focus on for the, let's say, next 5 to 10 years?
Certainly, we're focusing most on precious metals, gold. I think the gold price is in a good position to start rising. I think the U.S. dollar is starting to roll over for a lot of reasons. We won't go into those, but I think it is. So short term, I think precious metals, gold is a place to be. Looking out further, copper, there's a shortage for copper, and there's demand increasing with all the electrification going on. So certainly copper is the other one we're really interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it the same way. Do you think immobility will also push something here forward? I mean, e-mobility in that sense, we build the cars on the one hand, but we have to build the whole infrastructure for
Well, that's the key. You're right. That's the key. It takes electricity, and everything that goes in behind that electricity mostly takes copper.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm sure you talked to Johnny.
Oh yes, I interviewed Johnny also. That's his story completely. Yeah, but I mean also lithium, cobalt, vanadium, for example. Yeah, silver is a big thing coming up.
Yeah. Lithium for sure. It has to be very pure lithium. Vanadium, you will see. Cobalt, I don't see that being a big deal, because if you're going to build a battery that requires cobalt, that's $1 billion-something investment just for the facilities to build it and process it and base all your product going 10 years out on that. And it's a product that you don't have security of supply.
Yeah,
and I don't think cobalt's going to be a big deal.
Yeah. How do you think would be, let's say, the future development for exploration, but also for metal supply from, let's call it, ethical, correct jurisdictions? Do you think this is playing a much more important role? Like that we say, you cannot take the cobalt from the Congo because you don't know about child labor or slavery, stuff like that.
I see that happening a lot in the precious metals or precious stones and jewelry industry a lot. It's much more important there. My brother's involved in that, and he's involved in doing that in Brazil, in fact. So I can see that happening more in small stones and artisanal mining and that sort of thing. But for the most part, if you exclude maybe some things in the Congo, maybe some things the Chinese companies are running, most of the metals are mined pretty ethically. They're good jobs in countries that need good paying jobs. And there's no way you can trace it either. You can't trace where the gold came from.
Yeah.
I think
it's almost impossible, right?
Yeah, I think it's a nice story, but I don't think it's a reality.
Yeah, that's right. How do you see the impact in the future through China on commodity markets still? I mean, they have to grow.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Certainly China is key. India will come into play over the next century, or next decade. But certainly China is the key, the growth there, what they're building. And they need to keep their economy going to stay politically stable, too. So, China is, as usual, the key.
Yeah, absolutely. What companies did you find interesting down on the floor?
Not very many. To be honest, I mean, certainly there's a number of things we're going to look at in a lot more detail. I mean, you come to the PDAC, and it's all about, okay, this looks interesting. Sit down with the fellow a half hour, an hour, to go, okay, send us the data, and then Joe and I will go back, next week and go through data. Like we looked real hard at SK Creek, Skeena, and that looks interesting. I was there in the summer looking at the project. We'll take a look, and if the data warrants it, we'll buy into it. But it takes, you can't do it in an hour. We got to look at the metallurgy, we got to look at the drill holes, we got to see if the resource holds together. Yeah. So, I found some interesting things, but nothing that without more work, I can't recommend or say buying. You know what I mean? Yeah. And besides, that would go to the newsletter first.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely. Yeah, so make sure you have the newsletter. All right, Brent. So, how do you see the impact on this so-called trade war with China and the US? And hopefully, they will settle it.
It's obviously been pretty important so far and going forward as well. It's, I live in the States, I'm American, so I can see this going on a daily basis. And it's real chaos at the very, very top. And it's causing chaos filtering down through the markets, through the metal markets for sure, what's happening in China. I got to think that in the end, saner minds come together and there's a deal made, and we get back to doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is just trading with our partners. That's what it really comes down to. So I think that'll play out over the next year. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, they have to, because without let's say trade, without economic work relationships, nothing happens any longer, right?
And it certainly is going to negatively impact the Chinese economy and the U.S. economy. Which is not a good thing if you're trying to be elected in a second term, assuming you're not in an orange coat somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. How do you rate the importance in the future on uranium for electricity generation?
I think it's it is a fantastic way to generate electricity, efficient, et cetera. But with the alternative energies coming more and more into play, I think uranium is not going to be taking on a bigger role. Even in China, it's increasing, but they're doing a lot more alternative energy. So I don't see uranium as being a big deal. And Joe and I are neutral on uranium. We don't own any uranium stocks because looking out there is no shortage of supply of uranium in the ground. And you look at Cameco shutting down mines and buying it on the market. They obviously don't see any urgency to start ramping up production, which means they don't see any reason why the uranium price is going to be rising in the next year or two.
Well, that's crazy, yeah. Jesus Christ, yeah. Because I thought we need much more uranium because of China.
We've got there's no shortage of supply. The deposits are sitting out there waiting to go. So there's and there's some good ones that are waiting to go. But to me, if Cameco, the biggest producer, shuts down their best mines and just buys it off the spot market, that's telling me that they see plenty of supply.
But from where does all that material come? I mean, from, let's say, storage facilities. You can sell it once and then it's done.
Yeah.
Do we have that large storage facilities?
It would appear that way, yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, where it's coming from, but certainly it's coming from Russia, Kazakhstan, Namibia. Yeah, there's a lot out there.
Crazy. Okay. Well, Brent, thank you very much. Great insight, as usual. And I would say for our viewers here, Exploration Insights, check out the newsletter from Brent Cook.
Yeah, do that. Yeah. It's a website, lots of information, and good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Brent Cook from Exploration Insights, and you heard it. Exploration still, it's a very tough thing to move on, and still we need much more exploration for future metals. That's one thing which is for sure. But the money is still not there. Yeah, it's all dried out, and so we will see what happens. And as Frank Holmes alluded, maybe the next commodity cycle is starting. So hopefully it will does, and would all help us, much more in those markets. So thank you very much for watching us. Bye bye from Toronto.